A loud scream permeates the darkness, and a gunshot rings out. That's how Rob Zombie's Halloween ended. Michael Myers seemed to be dead, and Laurie Strode is left with a bunch of never-ending therapy bills after a single night where all of her friends were murdered, and she was forced to kill her big brother by shooting him in the face. Sounds like a night most would like to forget, and a filmmaking experience Rob Zombie would like to forget, according to reports of constant conflicts with the Weinsteins while making the film. Fucking Weinsteins. After Halloween was released, Zombie breathed a sigh of relief that his time on the franchise was behind him. Little did he know that only 1 year later, he was about to head back to Haddonfield. Let's find out what happened to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 here on What the F*** Happened to This Horror Movie. Well, Zombie hasn't said a thing about his exact problems with the Weinsteins. Their track record is enough to send people running for the hills when asked to work with them again. But he would run into Dimension executive Matthew Stein at the Scream Awards and ask how the follow-up to Halloween was going. When Stein told Zombie of the pitches they were considering, he became agitated that they were going to destroy the vision he set forth when making the first one. After some thoughts and feelings of ownership of these characters, he decided to return for another run. Zombie began work on the script right away. Fans wondered if this film would follow in the footsteps of the original Halloween 2 by taking place in a hospital on the same night as the first movie. Zombie let them know right away that he had no intention of doing any sort of remake with this film. When talking with female.com.au, he told them, quote, "I would say that the first half of my Halloween is very much a Rob Zombie movie. Every single person I've ever talked to about the movie likes the first half better, and that was the part that was original. When it became a remake of the John Carpenter stuff, those were the parts people liked less." He also received the blessing from series producer and franchise gatekeeper Malik Akkad to go in any direction he wanted. His father, Mustafa Akkad, had a list of hardline rules about what could and couldn't be done with the franchise and character of Michael Myers. Malik had given Rob his blessing to ignore all these rules and go in any direction he wished. In Halloween 2, we pick up right where the first film left off. Michael has been shot, Laurie is covered in blood, and it turns out Loomis didn't die but is gravely injured. Laurie is walking down the road in a dazed and confused state. Sheriff Brackett finds her and takes her to the emergency room. His daughter and Laurie's friend, Annie, and Loomis both end up at the hospital as well. Michael is presumed dead and loaded up in a van to be taken to the morgue. After an accident, Michael is jolted awake and escapes into the night. From here, we get a tease from Zombie that this is in fact going to follow along the original Halloween 2. Michael finds his way to the hospital and starts to kill anyone he can get his hands on, including Octavia Spencer. Do Ma and Halloween 2 take place in the same universe? That's a different video for a different time. After Michael makes his way through the hospital and finds Laurie, we're shown this has been a dream. In reality, it's 2 years later, and Laurie has been living with the Bracketts. With her adoptive family dead, and most of her friends killed, Laurie has been trying and failing to deal with her trauma. She seems to be lost with her life and trying to find her way. Meanwhile, Loomis has gained some celebrity notoriety by writing another book about the incident. He has been on a big book tour and has become obnoxious. In his new book, he reveals the secret that Laurie is in fact Angel Myers and is Michael's sister. After learning this, Laurie once again spirals out of control and lashes out at Annie and Sheriff Brackett for not telling her any of this, even though they knew. Michael has been living in the woods, healing from the wounds he suffered in the last movie. Many fans seem to be upset there is never an explanation given on how Michael survived being shot in the face. Zombie just shrugs these complaints off, saying he could have been grazed. Makes about as much sense as anything else in the Halloween series that explains Michael's continued survival. When Halloween once again rolls around, Michael begins to see a vision of his dead mother, along with a white horse. Really just an excuse for Zombie to get his wife into another movie. But here, she begins to tell Michael it's time to bring the family back together, and he starts his voyage back to Haddonfield. Once there, his killing spree continues as Laurie's new friends start to get picked off one by one. During this time, Laurie herself begins to have visions as well, suggesting a psychic connection to her brother. While it may not be intentional, this reminds fans of the same thing happening to Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 5. Danielle Harris shout out for both of these films. Eventually, The news of Michael's return reaches Loomis, who feels regret for what he has become, and returns to face Michael once again to end everything for good. While Zombie was feeling good about returning to the franchise, he was hit with reality just one day before filming started. 2 weeks of shooting time was slashed from the schedule. This caused Zombie to cut scenes out of the movie as the production began to reshuffle its schedule. Another blow came when post-production time was cut, after the Weinstein Company announced that Halloween 2 would be coming out in August 2009 rather than October. This undercut the time needed to edit the film and move Halloween 2 out of the logical release slot that a movie titled Halloween should be released in. Fucking Weinsteins. Even with these problems, production moved ahead in Georgia. The first film had been filmed in California, making it easy to predict the weather and thus able to keep the shooting schedule on time. With an already limited schedule due to the cuts, the production had to fight with rainy weather on a regular basis. Shooting days would have to move indoors during this time, and some scenes had to be tweaked to accommodate weather conditions on the fly. With an already tight schedule, things went further over schedule when some of the film's canisters were accidentally X-rayed at the airport as they were sent off for developing. This completely ruined the footage, and everything had to be reshot from scratch. At one point, the state's ATF department showed up to shut down production after a false claim was made that it was an unsafe working environment. This led to lost time on the already super tight production schedule. Rob Zombie's regular, Bill Moseley, got so frustrated with things that after one day of work, he quit. Then they had to scramble to find another actor to fill the role he was playing. Jeff Daniel was put in that role, even though he was already playing another character in the film. While not going into specifics, Zombie himself even alleged that certain individuals were stealing money from the film's budget. All of these things combined seemed to indicate that not only was this production also a terrible working experience, but was even worse than it was on the set of the first film. While doing an interview with Forbes in 2019, Zombie reflected on his time working on the Halloween films and working with the Weinstein Company. Quote, "Making Halloween with the Weinsteins was a miserable experience for me, and so I was very reticent to do the second one. I did do the second one, and I thought, okay, well the first one was a miserable experience, but it did well, so maybe it'll be easier the second time. It was worse. Oh my God. I felt like they weren't trusting me on the first one because they wanted to make sure it was a hit, and now they weren't trusting me not to fuck up their hit. They would show me scenes from Halloween to try and make a point, and I'd be like, yeah, I know, I made that movie. Why do you show me that like I've never seen it before?" An interesting tidbit from that interview suggests there is a documentary he had made during the making of the second film that shows how messed up the shoot was. Quote, "We made a behind-the-scenes documentary for the making of Halloween. That has somehow gotten lost in the vaults. That shows how messed up everything was and what was going on when we were making those movies. No matter your thoughts on the film, I think we can all agree we want to see that documentary." When it comes to the actual film, fans were excited to see what Rob Zombie would bring to the table. Since the first film was a reimagining of Halloween, Zombie was beholden to the events of the original 1978 film. No matter what he put at the beginning, if we didn't eventually see Michael Myers in a white Shatner mask and dark blue overalls stalking babysitters on Halloween night, we the fans would have had a meltdown. Now with the sequel, the chains were off, and he could go in any direction he wanted. While there is some merit to the idea of seeing Halloween 2 1981 being reimagined, having a fresh path blazed before us was exciting. Where would Zombie take this idea? We were going to see what an original Halloween sequel would look like from his mind. What we ended up with left some fans cold. Zombie's Dr. Loomis did differentiate himself in the first movie from the original's portrayal by Donald Pleasance, but the character became a horrible egomaniac in this sequel. Sure, in the first film, he didn't seem to work as a doctor who declares a lifelong quest to keep Michael locked up, as we had seen in the original franchise. Wanting to do something different is understandable. But without the Loomis we all know and love, the films lose their heart. While many fans may feel this way, Zombie has a different take on it. During an episode of Mick Garris's podcast Postmortem, he stated, quote, "I had started writing Dr. Loomis as still the avenging guy. I was like, this is ridiculous. He's some doctor. He's not going to run around with a magnum shooting people. This is absurd. Then I decided, oh, we'll just make him like Dr. Phil."
I don't want to talk to you.
Why not?
That's despicable. I don't want to talk to you. You can go.
If you think I exploit people, every time you bring a guest on this show, you exploit them and spread whatever the problems they have to the whole world.
Well, the mystery of why Michael turned from a young boy to a killing machine was absent from Zombie's first film. Adding in visions of his mother telling him what to do and where to go set it so far off track. None of these visions were in the first film, which throws off his motivations. Things like this seem more in line with the Friday the 13th films than the Halloween franchise.
Jason, my special boy. Do you know what your gift is? No matter what they do to you, you cannot die.
The white horse has also confused fans. In the first film, we do see a young Michael take a white horse toy and destroy it with a baseball bat during the film's end credits. Some thought this might be significant to what it might mean to Michael in his visions. After his mother brings a similar toy to Michael during a flashback to the institution at the beginning of the second film, there was a lot of chatter online that it symbolizes his innocence and that the color of white shows his pure self, blah, 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 blah. In reality, according to Zombie, it means nothing. Talking to Scream magazine, he said, quote, "The white horse does have significant meaning, but it could have been anything. She could have given him a fire engine. People misunderstood the white horse. It was just meant to signify his childhood memory. Could have been any object, but I thought that was particularly cinematic. I really want to see the visions that had his mom being followed around by a fire engine." As with the first film, Rob Zombie was given a director's cut on home video. Well, it seems he tried to kill off Michael Myers in the first film. To keep there from being sequels, he doubled down here. His original ending is part of the director's cut for part 2. In the end, Michael stabs Loomis to death and then gets taken down in a hail of bullets by the police. After Laurie says goodbye to her brother, she dons his mask and races out the door of the shack with his knife in her hand. She is also killed by the police. Then it cuts to the same shot from the theatrical cut where she is sitting in a sanitarium looking at her biological mother and young brother with the white horse as Love Hurts plays over the end credits. In the theatrical cut, Laurie survives the standoff with police, but we still have that final shot seeming to indicate while she survived, she has lost her battle mentally and has finally joined her brother in seeking revenge on the world that wronged them and took her family away from her. In the director's cut, this indicates that this is what she sees as she lays dying. She is reunited with her family in death. Zombie considers the director's cut finale as the real ending. The Weinstein Company obviously wanted to keep the reimagining franchise going, so they made him reshoot it with what ended up being in the theatrical cut. While they tried to move on to a Halloween 3, even considering a Halloween 3D at one point, it never happened, and the rights eventually reverted back to Universal Studios, who tapped Blumhouse to bring us the 2018 sequel, Halloween. Really? Now there are 3 films from the franchise that just have the name Halloween. Somehow, this is still the Weinsteins' fault. Fucking Weinsteins. Thank you for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our JoBlo Horror Videos channel. Tell your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all our latest videos. We're an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.
On the soaked streets of Blue Island, and my father, though a strong man, you know, I swear I saw him crying. Another generation gone has ceased subsiding. When you say a prayer and you put him in the ground, you speak of whiskey and it's mark and bound. Ain't no new shit going down on the soaked streets of Blue Island.